Detroit Lions. That's the name, that's the clue, and that's just story one. First, the Giants clip exposed a trade-up push. Then, we asked what Detroit was chasing. And then, the one that changes everything. What Big Blue knew while the board was moving. By the end of this, you'll know exactly why this draft room leak matters for the Giants. Big Blue lock-in. Word just broke from Giants-produced footage, and this is not normal filler content. This is the kind of accidental reveal teams hate, because one tiny behind-the-scenes moment can say a lot more than any press conference ever will. Real talk before we dive in. Eagles fans always act like their channels own this division, and Cowboys fans think the loudest voice wins. Not here. If you want a channel built by Big Blue, for Big Blue Nation, hit subscribe right now. Every single sub is a flag in the ground for the G-Men. And if you're riding with New York Tough, comment, "Let's go Giants," and let the rivals see it. Now let's get to the clip. So what was actually exposed, and why should Giants fans care? Here's the first layer. The Giants released a draft room clip, and in that footage, it appears the Detroit Lions were trying to make a major move up on day 2 of the draft. Short sentence, big meaning. Because when another team is pushing that hard, the board is alive. That is the reveal. Detroit looked urgent, and the Giants were right there in the middle of the action. Now, here's the truth nobody's telling you. This is not just a Lions story. This is a Giants information story. If Detroit was trying to come up in a big way, then the Giants were sitting in a spot that mattered. That means their position on the board had value, their decision-makers were navigating pressure, and the room had to process real movement in real time. That matters, because it tells us the Giants were not drifting through the draft. They were operating from leverage. And leverage is everything in a draft room. A team does not try to jump unless it fears losing something. That's the key. The footage appears to show urgency from Detroit, and urgency from another franchise can tell you a lot about the quality of the board sitting in front of Big Blue. It also raises the first hard question. Did the Giants hold steady because they love their own read, or did they pass on a chance to cash in that leverage? That is where this gets interesting. The supporting context matters too. The Giants are in one of those off-season windows where schedule talk starts creeping in, and everybody wants to jump ahead to matchups, headlines, and division noise. But this clip yanks the focus back where it belongs. The front office room, the draft board, the hidden moments, the decisions that shape what Jackson Dart and this roster will be working with when the real games start. Film don't lie, and neither do draft room reactions. Even a quick behind-the-scenes detail can reveal how a team was reading the market. Personal opinion here. I think this clip is good news for Giants fans, not bad news. Why? Because it suggests the Giants were sitting in a meaningful spot while another team felt pressure. I'd rather my front office be in the chair others are calling than the one chasing. That's my read on it. If you think the Giants missed a bigger opportunity, comment if you see it differently. I read every reply. But wait, story 2 is bigger, because now we have to ask the question that turns this from a cool clip into a real draft debate. Who exactly was Detroit trying to go get? Now, what most channels miss is the target question. Everybody sees Lions try to move up and stops there. That's lazy. The real story is what that urgency says about the player, the board, and how close this thing may have gotten. The Giants-produced footage appears to show Detroit trying to make a huge move up the board. Huge. Not small movement. Not a casual check-in. A real push. That matters because teams do not show that kind of urgency without conviction. If Detroit was pushing hard, they believed somebody on that board was worth disrupting the plan for. And when a team makes that call, every team in range has to make a choice. Take the offer, hold the line, or use that information to confirm their own board. That is where the Giants' angle becomes stronger than the Lions' angle. Big Blue was not just watching another franchise scramble. They were collecting information in real time. Think about the pressure inside that room. If you know another team wants up badly, then you know the board is about to shift. You know somebody is feeling the squeeze. You know your own slot has become a decision point, not just a pick. And if the Giants stayed disciplined through that, then that says something about how they were navigating the draft. It says they were not reacting emotionally to noise. They were tracking the board, reading urgency, and making a choice from a position of awareness. And yes, the mystery matters. We still do not have the answer to who Detroit was targeting from the footage itself. But that uncertainty is the point. It keeps the clip alive, because every possibility forces the same conclusion. The Giants were in a live market, and another team was willing to make a major jump. That changes how you read the entire draft sequence. I'll say it. In my opinion, this is one of the most revealing Giants off-season details we've gotten. Not because of a quote, Not because of a headline. Because accidental footage is often more honest than polished messaging. If the clip really showed Detroit pushing that hard, then the Giants were operating in a hotter zone than people realized. That's where I'm planting the flag. Tell me I'm wrong. Now I want your take. Comment smart if you think the Giants played the board correctly. Comment missed if you think they should have done more with that spot. No middle ground. Make me defend my position. Quick reminder, if you made it this far, you are Big Blue. Hit subscribe, because story 3 is the one. What's coming next is the real bomb. Not just that Detroit tried. Not just that the board got tense. The bigger question is what the Giants knew in that moment, and how close this whole thing got. Stay with me. Now, what you've really been waiting for. The story that flips everything. The one I told you about at the start. Here it is. This behind-the-scenes Giants video appears to show the Detroit Lions trying to make a huge move up the board during the draft. And once that is on the table, the entire conversation changes. Because now the real questions are not surface-level questions. The real questions are these. Who were they targeting? How close did it get? And what did the Giants know while the clock and the board were moving? That last one is the killer. Because if the Giants knew Detroit was under pressure, then they were not just selecting from a board. They were reading another team's fear. They were seeing urgency up close. They were getting a live signal from the market. And that matters more than people think, because draft rooms are built on incomplete information. Every extra clue is gold. A behind-the-scenes clip like this hints that the Giants were not acting blind. They were in the middle of a high-stakes read, with another franchise trying to force action. Now connect this to the first two stories. First, the Giants were clearly in a meaningful position on day 2. Second, Detroit's urgency tells us the board had a pressure point. Third, this new angle forces us to view the Giants' draft room as a place of leverage, not passivity. That is the bomb. The clip did not just expose Detroit. It revealed that Big Blue may have had a sharper feel for the board than outsiders understood. And that raises a bigger football truth. Draft success is not only about who you pick. It is also about whether you understand the room, the calls, the panic, the timing, and the pressure around you. The Giants' footage appears to show a moment where all of that was happening at once. That is why this story has legs. This is not gossip. This is process. This is how teams show you who they are, even when they do not mean to. I'm going on record right now. In my opinion, this clip is a bigger indicator of front office control than any polished offseason message. Why? Because controlled media tells you what a team wants you to hear. Accidental detail tells you what was really happening. And what appears to have been happening here is simple. Detroit was urgent, the board was hot, and the Giants were sitting in the middle of it with information. That is a strong sign. Tell me I'm wrong. I'll defend that all week. Now you have your answer to the question I asked earlier. If you think the Giants handled that board the right way, drop smart. If you think they let too much pass by, drop missed. If this analysis hit, like the video. That's how we keep the algorithm pushing this kind of breakdown to Big Blue Nation. 3 stories, 1 picture. Here's what it all means together. The Giants are in a key off-season window. The schedule is starting to come into focus, and the easy thing would be to drift into generic talk. But this draft room clip stopped that. It pulled us back to the one thing that actually matters, how the Giants' front office thinks under pressure. And from what this footage appears to show, Big Blue was not guessing. They were navigating a live board with real demand around them. That matters in the NFC East. The Eagles, Cowboys, and Commanders all want to act like New York is still chasing shadows. I do not buy that. I think this kind of detail shows a team building with awareness, not panic. That is how you close gaps in a division. Listen closely. My next video is going to break down what this draft room reveal says about the Giants' bigger roster-building approach and how that connects to the schedule window ahead. If you're Big Blue for real, subscribe right now so YouTube actually puts that video in front of you. Hit the bell, stay locked, and do not let the algorithm send you back to generic NFL nonsense. And drop your final answer below. Smart or missed? I'm reading all of it. But there's still a cliffhanger here. One decision remains unanswered. What exactly did the Giants decide the board was telling them in that moment? That part is still sitting there, unresolved, and it matters because one hidden draft room read can echo through the whole season. And the external cliffhanger is obvious. If Detroit was that aggressive, then somewhere on that board was a target worth chasing hard. That means another layer to this story could still surface. If it does, we're on it immediately. Big Blue, the battle is here. This is New York Tough, this is Big Blue Nation, and this is why you stay locked with the G-Men. Subscribe, stay ready, and let's go Giants.